I, 32M, never expected my own family to betray me, but I guess that's the problem with trust. You don't see the knife coming until it's already in your back. I was always the responsible one. My parents raised me to work hard, save money, and plan for the future. My younger brother, 28M, on the other hand, he was the golden child, the one who always had an excuse, always had a reason why he couldn't hold down a job, always needed just a little help to get back on his feet. For years, I watched as my parents bailed him out of every mess he got himself into. Credit card debt? They paid it. Eviction notice? They covered the rent. Crashed his car? They bought him a new one. Meanwhile, I was working 2 jobs through college, paying off my own student loans, and building my career without a single handout. I should have seen it coming. The betrayal. When my grandfather passed away, he left behind a sizable inheritance. Not life-changing money, but enough to make a real difference, around $250,000. Here's what was clear. The money was to be split 50-50 between me and my brother. My parents were the executors of the estate, which in hindsight was my first mistake. A few months after the will was read, my parents sat me down. "We've been thinking," my father started, his voice taking on that familiar patronizing tone. "Your brother is struggling right now. He's got student loans, medical bills, and he wants to start a business. You're doing well, you have a steady job, a house, you don't really need the money like he does." I felt my stomach tighten. "What are you saying?" My mother sighed, like she was the victim here. "We've decided it would be best if your share of the inheritance went to your brother. He needs it more than you." I just stared at them, waiting for the punchline. But it wasn't a joke. They were serious. "You're not giving me my inheritance?" My voice was calm, but my hands clenched into fists. "Sweetheart, try to understand," my mother pleaded. "We're family. We help each other. He's in a tough spot." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So am I. I work my ass off for everything I have. That money was meant for both of us. Grandpa wanted it split. My father's face hardened. "Don't be selfish. You have enough." "He doesn't." Selfish. That word echoed in my head. Selfish because I wanted what was legally mine. Selfish because I didn't want to hand over my rightful inheritance to a man who had never taken responsibility for a single thing in his life. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "If you do this, we're done. You understand that, right?" My mother gasped, like I had just slapped her. "How can you say that?" "Because I see the truth now," I said coldly. "You don't care about fairness. You don't care about me. You just want to keep enabling him." But it was already done. The money had been transferred. My parents had power over the estate, and they used it to funnel every last cent into my brother's hands. I walked out of their house that night and didn't look back. The fallout. My brother, of course, blew through the money in less than 2 years. The business he wanted to start never happened. Instead, he took lavish vacations, bought a new car, partied like he was a celebrity, and made terrible investments in shady get-rich-quick schemes. By the end of it, he had nothing left. And then, just like clockwork, he went crawling back to our parents, expecting them to save him. But this time, they couldn't. They had drained their savings trying to help him. Their retirement fund? Nearly gone. They had refinanced their house twice. They were in serious financial trouble. And so, after years of telling me I had enough, they came knocking at my door. The begging. My mother showed up first, her eyes red-rimmed. "Sweetheart, we need to talk." I let her inside, mostly out of curiosity. She looked around my house, the house I had bought with my own hard-earned money, and I could see the desperation in her face. "Your father and I were in a bit of a tough spot," she admitted, wringing her hands. "We need some help, just enough to get back on our feet." I leaned back against the counter. "And my brother?" She flinched. "He's struggling too." I laughed. I actually laughed. "You mean he wasted all the money you stole from me, and now you're broke?" She had the audacity to look hurt. "We didn't steal it. We thought we were doing the right thing." I shook my head, amazed at her delusion. "You thought enabling him again was the right thing, and now you want me to bail you out?" "We're your parents," she said weakly. "Family takes care of each other." That was it. That was the moment I felt all the resentment, all the years of being second place to my brother, solidify into something cold and unmovable. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "No." She gasped. "But you made your choice," I said. "You gambled everything on him. And you lost. That's not my problem." She started crying, begging, saying they could lose the house, that they had nowhere else to go. I didn't care, because when I needed them to stand by me, they threw me aside. Now, it was their turn to feel what that was like. The breakdown. A few days later, my father called. I let it go to voicemail. I knew what he wanted. Then my brother tried. Multiple texts, all variations of, "Come on, man, we're family. Don't be like this." I ignored them. But my father? He wasn't one to be ignored. He showed up at my house, pounding on the door like I owed him something. I opened it, standing in the doorway with my arms crossed. "You've made your point," he said, his voice clipped. "But this has gone far enough. We need help." I almost laughed at his arrogance. "You think you can just show up here and demand money after what you did?" His face turned red. "We didn't demand anything. We made a decision for the good of the family. By stealing from me," he scowled. "We're your parents. We raised you. We sacrificed for you. And then you threw me away for him." My father exhaled sharply, trying to rein in his temper. "We're going to lose everything, son. Not my problem." His expression darkened. "You don't mean that?" I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Oh, I absolutely do. You betrayed me. You chose him. Now you get to live with that choice." For the first time, I saw a real fear in his eyes. Not anger, not disappointment, fear. Because he realized I was serious. "You'll regret this," he said, his voice shaking. "No," I said coldly. "But you will." I shut the door in his face. The consequences. A month later, my parents lost their house. Turns out, they were deeper in debt than I realized. The bank foreclosed, and they had no savings left. They had to move in with my brother, who was barely scraping by himself. Then, the cherry on top, my brother got sued. Turns out, one of his brilliant business ideas involved taking loans from people he couldn't pay back. When they came collecting, he had nothing to give. A lawsuit followed, and without money for a lawyer, he lost. He had to declare bankruptcy. My parents, still desperate to help him, ended up moving into a small rental apartment, far from the nice house they once had. And as for my brother, he had nothing. No credit, no assets, no future. And me? I thrived. I focused on my career, invested wisely, and built the life I wanted. No more worrying about family drama. No more being the backup plan for their bad decisions. And the best part? They had no one to blame but themselves. The aftermath. A few weeks ago, I got a text from my mother. "I miss you. Please, can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time before deleting it. Because the truth is, I don't miss them. They made their choice, and I made mine. If you enjoyed that, make sure to subscribe. Unlike my parents, I won't steal from you and beg for help later.